Hey, what's going on, guys? It's your boy, Nerdmode, and I'll be doing a gameplay commentary over some Battlefield 4. For this particular episode, I'll be talking with you guys about my final review of the Battlefield 4 beta. During this episode, I'll be talking about player models, balancing for vehicles and infantry, accessories, battle packs, the whole 100 yards. Now, of course, I don't claim to have any idea of the coding and the effort that went into Battlefield 4 beta. I knew a lot of it probably took a lot more effort than we want to, as a consumer, give credit for. I think a lot of people misinterpret the definition of a beta. I think we all think in the back of our minds we're like, oh, well, this is what the final game will look like. But if you actually pay attention and you know the standard definition of what a beta is, you realize that this is the opportunity for them to make the game the best that it can possibly be. You know, a lot of people compared Battlefield 4 and saying it was significantly worse than Battlefield 3's beta, but I don't think those people played enough hours into the Battlefield 3 beta to realize it was pretty broken. There were a lot of problems in Battlefield 3's beta, and I would say that Battlefield 4 was definitely a step up. Now, of course, they both have their problems. When the beta was initiative for Battlefield 3, there was glitching, there were spots you weren't supposed to get into, player models' hands didn't make any sense, you had the stretchy guy that was all over the map pretty much all the time, you could snake all over the place with your body, disconnecting limbs and pieces. You know, there was a lot of stuff that was wrong. And I know in 2 years, you want to look at Battlefield 3 and you want to go, that was the best game that was ever released, or the best beta that has been released in years. And I would agree with you. Granted, Battlefield 3 had its problems, but it still became one of the most notorious games probably in the next 2 years. I don't know a whole lot of games that can maintain that kind of player base every single day, 24/7, and still be releasing new content. They did 5 complete, DLC packages for it. They gave you over 20-something weapons, and they were constantly giving to the community. Now, I know some people, don't want to agree with that, and they just want to say they're trying to dwindle out money from us, but you have the opportunity to decide if you are interested in downloadable content. That's up to you. The vanilla version of the game is still playable. There's a lot of good maps in the vanilla game, and a lot of people still play the same maps even today, even with those extra maps played into the mix. So, it's up to you as a consumer to make your final decision. Now, of course, with Battlefield 4, because that's what we're going to be centralizing our topic about today, I wanted to go over how the beta was received. Of course, when it first came out the first couple of days, it was pretty buggy, I'm not going to lie. For all of you Windows 7 users out there like myself for quite some time, you'll realize that the game was quote-unquote almost unplayable. And DICE received a fair amount of feedback from that. Definitely there were probably a little bit more aggressive people than maybe there should have been, and it was definitely an interesting way to see the community kind of crumble under its own self because of an issue that isn't really something that DICE could really fix. And the reason I say that is because if you guys are familiar with DICE's Twitter and Facebook account, they are probably one of the most active development teams that actually use their social media. If you guys have a question about anything, if you guys want to let them know about something you disagree with, you go over to their Facebook or their Twitter, and I guarantee you within 20 minutes they'll have a reply for you. And I don't know a whole lot of other companies that do that. Activision doesn't do it. I'm sure a lot of other companies that just don't even care. Ubisoft doesn't do it either. And that's saying something about DICE. Maybe you don't exactly agree with their policies. Maybe you hate EA and you think they suck all the fun out of everything. But at one way or another, you got to realize that they're pretty much the most active development team that there probably is. Now, of course, we're not talking about indie developers because they're just happy to get any money they can get, but at the same expense for a company that upholds millions of players every day on just one game, that's saying something. And, maybe this is coming across a little fanboy for you, but in the reality of it, I respect that. I gotta sit there and be like, that takes a lot of balls to stand up to a community that is maybe being a little bit more negative than they should be, expecting that they did get free time to play a beta. They could fuck you over and not give you the beta. I mean, they could have done that. You imagine playing the game when it first released and the standpoint of what the beta was like? How many people would be reselling the game back probably to GameStop or something within 24 hours without actually giving it a real chance? Well, now we actually have the opportunity to make the game the best that it can be. So I would be maybe a little bit more grateful in that standpoint. I know on Facebook alone there was a lot of complaining with people having zero clue on how to do research by themselves. But let's jump into it. Windows 7 had its issues. It was not really programmed for the Battlefield 4 beta. Even if you installed the correct drivers, it still functioned very poorly. However, if you're like me and you were somebody that paid attention, to their social media sites and maybe took with a little bit more of a grain of salt, you'll realize that Windows 8 was the supreme race for Battlefield 4 beta. Now, I know not all of you guys like Windows 8. Windows 8 is probably one of the most hated operating systems that I can think of. I know a lot of people hate it. They just don't like that iPad slash feel to it. That's understandable. I'm not really a fan of it myself, but if I can improve the game and if I can get 10 to 15% more frames and I can make it stable, I'm going to pay an extra $100 to get my computer going. I'm going to pay an extra $100 to get my game going. But I understand that not every single one of you guys has $100 just laying around ready to spend. And I feel for you. As a consumer, that sucks when, they can't program it for two operating systems that are identical with the same manufacturer and the same company on the software name. But, I guess they did kind of come out and tell you, months in advance that the game is going to work a lot better on Windows 8. And a lot of the community just kind of shrugged their shoulder and went, nah, don't care. Fuck you. I ain't buying Windows 8. And, well, I guess to that circumstance, on a consumer's point, that is kind of their fault. But as a development team, there's a lot of precautions that you could have taken to definitely make the game the best that it could have been, especially for some of those PC guys out there. I know it was a little rough, and I know the comments got a little negative on most of their social media sites quickly. But with that said and done, of course, Windows 8 was a lot better, a lot more stable, and I enjoyed it a lot more. Granted, the features are not too dynamic too much from Windows 7, but it's to be expected, of course. In the sense of player balance and the actual balancing of vehicles and all that, I thought they did an amazing job. Battlefield 3 had some issues. I would say that the attack helicopter, or at least a team that sat back with zoomed optics and was out of the range of the Stingers, could dominate the game. They could sit up there and go 100 kills and 0 deaths. There's a lot of gameplays on YouTube that suggest this to be pretty accurate. And I know a lot of bigger YouTubers that are personally subscribers and stuff like that I watch, they just pull this stuff out like it's a standard day. And it's nice to see that the attack helicopter got a little bit of a nerf in a sense. It has limited damage it can do. It's not the most powerful vehicle on the battlefield anymore, and you can't just sit back there and just farm for XP on those poor infantry guys that can't lock onto you with a Stinger. Granted, I was never really in favor of the Stinger in Battlefield 3. I thought it was probably one of the most overpowered weapons that the engineer or just the entire opposition had to their exposed, because it was one of those things that the range was increased so much when the newer maps came out. And I know a lot of people bitch about the M16, but believe me, I think the Stinger was probably one of the most annoying and most overpowered things that ruined a lot of the air support in Battlefield 3. But that's an opinion. I can't force you guys to think that way by any means. But I would say that the tanks are a lot more balanced. I just think they need to realign where the shell comes out, because as of now, if I'm correct, I think it's a little below and to the right, and that's kind of a problem, but I imagine it'll be fixed when the final release comes out, and it'll be nice not to be able to hit concrete poles and shit that isn't even in the line of sight in the actual lineup of the barrel. But that'll be something that can be fixed. The transport vehicles for the helicopters are a lot more balanced. I know a lot of people are pissed that they decreased the damage on the miniguns, but maybe that isn't a bad thing. I mean, they have unlimited ammunition, so that's not to say that maybe they shouldn't get a little bit of a buff, but we definitely don't want to make them too powerful. They don't need to be this super armored helicopter that can eat RPG shells for days, tank shells, and constantly get hit by the attack helicopter multiple times before they go down. And I would be pretty pleased that, you can have 2 rep guys inside of it as well. So it's kind of an armored fortress. It's one of the most powerful vehicles if you have a team that, knows how to use it. If you don't know how to use it, then it's probably one of the weaker vehicles in the game. But if you have a team that is coordinating with each other, they're all working together as a team, that thing can destroy helicopters, it can destroy infantry inside of the buildings or just on the ground in general. It can destroy transport vehicles. It's a very deadly weapon. I just don't think the community knows how to use it, maybe to the full effectiveness that it can uphold, but hopefully we'll see that change in the upcoming titles. The boats are pretty balanced. I don't have a problem with them. I think they're great for destroying vehicles, everything like that. But where it comes into play is where we actually get to the infantry units. I think that the RPG locking on to vehicles in the air, kind of like the Javelins in Battlefield 3 with the SOFLAM, with this case being the PLD, that needs to definitely be taken out of the game. RPGs shouldn't have the ability to lock on, considering that it's just super overpowered at that point. It destroys the actual air combat. And could you imagine if this map that we're playing on, the Siege of Shanghai, was more flat? There'd be nowhere to hide, and that would become one of the most aggravating and most annoying things that Battlefield's had in quite some time. I would even say it's probably worse than Stingers in Battlefield 3, or maybe the M16 in some cases. But definitely that needs to be adjusted. I think the player models look absolutely amazing. I think they were very cleanly done. They look absolutely magnificent, and I look forward to hopefully seeing what else will come with the Russian fraction. Now, of course, when it comes to the actual guns that were in the beta, it's hard to say if any particular gun is quote-unquote overpowered. I mean, of course, there's going to be a gun that's more powerful, but I think they were all pretty balanced. I didn't have a problem with any of them. Granted, I didn't really appreciate the whole noob tube thing or the noob tube spamming that was going on domination, but you can't make good players good. You can only hopefully give them the gadgets that will make them better, and hopefully they'll figure out a way to decrease the amount of noob tubes that go on during that map. But domination, the game types, everything is all pretty good. And when it comes down to the final standpoint of where I stand, I know a lot of people are really upset about battle packs, but I don't really care too much for them. Now, I don't know, I guess I'll see when the final release comes out. I mean, as of now, I didn't find them to be something that was like a pay to win in a sense. I didn't find it to be too aggravating. Granted, I like Battlefield 3 system 100 times better, but I'm definitely not going to say that the battle packs are as worse as people want to say they are. I think they're okay. I think everything will be okay when the game comes out, and I don't think they're going to be as big of a problem as we're trying to perceive it. But that's my opinion, guys. Let me know in the comments below if you agree with some things, disagree. I would love to hear your feedback, and I look forward to hopefully making more episodes like this. This has been NMO, guys, and I hope you enjoyed the gameplay. I'll be signing out. Peace.